The following is a conversation with Bev, who is host for the DimSide channel on YouTube and Rumble. I first saw her on the Unsafe Space podcast and podcast network, which was always a great podcast criticizing the woke insanity like I mentioned during our speak together. It was much honor to speak with Bev, and I much thank her willingness to talk with me, especially since I new to this country and not know as good English. Why are you gay?
Hello.
Hey,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so you have the podcast is a guy in his room. That's why you've got that name.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, but I've never done live. Have you always been doing live streams?
Yeah, I never really did it. So I think you came in after Unsafe Space, like when we moved to my own channel, but we were doing it through Unsafe Space first, and I was just like a producer and editor, and then started doing live streaming. So I've always just done it live. It's easier too because I'm lazy instead of having to pre-record things, and
Yeah.
I like the interaction with chat too, so that's kind of like the vibe. But when I was doing for producing and editing, we would do pre-recorded stuff as well. So but I wasn't on camera.
Yeah, that's cool. I heard of them like over the pandemic. Like they're one of the podcasts I found. Like I was looking for anyone criticizing woke stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
same. Well, I found about them through another person, and yeah, so it was just kind of like slowly getting. I think it started with like sort of a climate change like a YouTuber, and then I came across someone else who did like politics, who talked about unsafe space, and then I just started as a volunteer there.
oh, did they like do it for a while before that, or did they just start and have a following already somehow?
uh, Before I joined, or
Uh,
sorry, what's the question?
like were they had they been doing it before 2020?
Oh, yeah, he started a couple years before that. It was like 2017, 18 when he was doing like intermittent stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And then but then it started building up more around 2020 with everything going on because it was still like very few followers until then. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like 2020s when I kind of like was looking for I guess that's when I was like really realizing like the woke stuff had gone crazy. I mean, I guess a lot of people did, but I guess before that I think I kept trying to like think, oh, this is like, I don't know, just some people that are crazy and not,
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a thing until then. I mean, I was in Chicago and I had liberal friends and sort of they probably talked about socialism things too. Yeah, yeah, they did. But I didn't really think about it as like this growing culture problem, because it was just sort of like I keep ignoring it because I don't feel like getting in these conversations, and
Yeah.
just kind of because like Second City was all about it's always left leaning, so I was just kind of used to that, so I just kind of stayed out of it. But it got worse, especially when Trump was elected. Was I working? Yeah, I was working at Second City then because when Trump was elected, I worked in the night staff for at the Second City Comedy Theater, and I remember like they had this like big team meeting in one of the theaters, and they asked like if you're upset, like if you're emotionally affected or whatever it was about the election, about Trump being elected, and like people would stand up or something for it, and I did not understand. I was totally confused why this was such a big deal to people. Like what the guy that's on TV, like that big entertainment guy, like why are you so freaked out about it? Because I wasn't paying attention. So I had no idea why everyone was so panicky about this. Like I barely paid attention to the election. So that should have like hinted toward it, but it wasn't until more with the coof and all that happening when I was like, this is not great. And then seeing everything else with George Floyd and stuff too. I'm like, man, what's happening with the world? And Unsafe Space was able to help me like sort of piece together like, oh, this is what's going on.
So you you used to do improv stuff in
Mhm.
Chicago or something?
Yeah, I did improv, mostly improv, a little bit of sketch, but yeah, I moved to Chicago for comedy things. So I took classes at Second City, IO Theater, and Annoyance Theater. So those are like the big three in Chicago, and like the ones where people move on to SNL and stuff. But I've never actually been that big of a fan of SNL. But those were the comedy theaters there. Um, so I did that for 5 or so years, I think, and then but because of the culture, like before, again, it was like not really consciously aware of it, but it was seeing how they're like too political, or it wasn't as like we couldn't be as funny, though I was watching people like they're not as funny and they're more preachy because it would be them going on stage and saying like, oh, I'm a woman and like women are better and men suck. So it's just really basic. I'm like, you can just be a woman and be on stage and be literally anything you want because we're playing pretend and you're choosing to just talk about how you're a woman and how you're better than men. And it was so lame. But that was kind of like what they kept pushing for, like not just the performers, but like the institutions were like, yeah, we want more of this. And it just kind of grew less fun. I really like the obscure, abstract kind of like weird comedy rather than doing political stuff too. So
Yeah.
after a while, it was kind of like, I've had enough. So then I got a different job, and I also started as an audio engineer intern, and then got
Oh.
hired as a freelancer downtown.
So you had, well, were you taking classes then? Or you had a
Yeah.
job or something?
Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
taking classes at those theaters, and then I also started working at Second City on the night staff, so I was a server in the theaters. So
Okay.
you had to carry out your drinks and stuff on the giant trays, and so you have like 20 drinks with like the Pilsner glasses and stuff in the dark during the performances. So you're like trying not to get in the way of people seeing it. You're trying to be quiet and you're trying to pass stuff in the dark. And then people would try to take
Wow.
stuff off of your tray sometimes too, and that would like it would topple your tray over because they're trying to be helpful, but you're trying to balance it. So I'd always constantly, once I learned that, I had to like tell like, no, don't touch it, because like you'd have to carefully pick it off the tray. Um, and I've definitely spilled multiple things, sometimes onto people. So it's I it was soul sucking too because it was also a sales job because you had to like upsell and stuff. I'm like, this is not
Oh,
worth $30 that you're paying for this drink, but I'm trying to get the money.
wow. Oh, so you mean they weren't stealing drinks, they were just trying to help or something by taking the drinks off?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were just trying to help us. They're like, "Oh, this is," and I don't know why. Sometimes they'd assume which drink was theirs. I'm like, "No, that's not even
No.
yours. There are like 20 drinks on this tray. Why would you think that one is yours?" So they were not always the brightest people.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I forgot to yeah, so you have a podcast called like The DimSide? I know you have a couple different
I don't
shows
really.
on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I don't know if I refer to it as a podcast. It's just the channel I have is the dim side. And then because it started on Unsafe Space, then I had and I changed names to Occasional Levity. Um, moved over, so I kept that name, but the dim stream was what I just changed it to when I moved it to my channel. So
Oh,
Alex and
okay.
I just talk pop culture there, and then on Occasional Levity, we do more news and politics. But the politics, because the culture and stuff leaks in everywhere, it happens in the pop culture one too.
Yeah, so you just have channels on YouTube and Rumble, like it's not on podcast apps or whatever.
Yeah, I don't do audio. No, I'm too lazy for that. And again, I think when I'm live streaming,
Oh yeah.
I feel like people, it's not as important to me about people watchwatching it later on. Like maybe they do. I don't know. Like some people do, at least when I've seen in Discord, they like go back and listen to it. I'm like, that's so nice of you. I didn't expect you to like actually go through, because it's just like Alex and me chatting about whatever topics and stuff. And but like I think of it as more if people are going to be there in the live chat, because that way we can actually interact with them. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't do anything audio wise.
Yeah, well, it's cool you guys interact with the chat. A lot of people that stream, like, people send super chats and like I'm too cheap to do that usually. So
I'm too poor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I get it. That's why I appreciate anytime anyone sends anything. And I'm glad that Rumble finally started paying me out.
Oh yeah.
But I get it. That's why I'm like, I'm not forcing people to do it. It's just they're being generous because like I still read other people's non-paid chats too, though. But
Yeah, but Rumble isn't. Some people I think it's it's a right wing site, but it's really just another video site like YouTube, but it doesn't yet. Hopefully it won't, but it doesn't yet like censor stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. I was a little concerned when I saw the policy page the other day, and I posted that in Discord too, because I was a little bit where it was just like, we don't want certain things. And it kind of it did make it seem a little conservative, where it was like, they don't want bikinis was a term on there. Like they didn't want bikinis on there. I'm like, ever? And
oh
Alex had said maybe because like there would be girls who stream like in their bikinis or something. They're just trying to avoid that. But I was like, that's a weird policy though. So I'm just kind of like, I'm cautious. I'm hopeful, but I'm cautious
yeah,
too that like who knows what direction they might end up going in, but they are the best alternative currently, I think, to YouTube. So that's why, and I'm not live streaming on YouTube anymore either because they've already been problematic. So we're just solely Rumble streaming now.
yeah, yeah. I first heard of Rumble like because I think a conservative guy started it or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like I don't know. I guess there's like some other ones like Odyssey I was trying to use.
Yeah, Odyssey, BitChute, and Utreon kind of was more, but I thought they were more video based, but they're more like Patreon. So like you do Patreon,
Oh,
but they
okay.
also do videos. So they can do live streaming and upload videos, but it's more about like this is where you subscribe to a person.
Kind of like Subscribe Star is a new one.
Yes, yeah. So subscribe, yeah. So subscribe star is like Patreon, and Utreon is one of those things, but it allows you to like upload and live stream videos. So it's kind of, I'd say technically it's better. And they're cool too. Like the CEO is Alex had interviewed him on the Unsafe Space channel before, and he was a cool
Oh.
guy. And I forget what it was, probably more on the libertarian side of things.
Yeah, YouTube. I mean, YouTube is so bad now. I think Unsafe Space had stuff taken down before, right? And that's why they.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it'll be I think the last time was that we got marked for a video a year beforehand that they said was wrong, and then they gave us a strike, so we couldn't upload for a week because they went through and just I don't know if someone like reported it or if YouTube was just going into past ones, and I think it was COOF related. Yeah, I think it was like misinformation that they said, even though. But I think by that point, when we got the strike, it was already common knowledge that what they said was confirmed. It was just at the
Yeah.
time it was uncertain. So I don't know. That's why another reason to not trust YouTube for
All you have to
anything.
do is know the future and what will be permitted, and that's all you have to
Yeah,
do to get
that's
by.
it. It's pretty simple. Just know the future. So
Yeah, do a podcast. So I guess you got into improv. Did you do improv? Like you did improv too back then?
yeah. So I mean, taking the classes, you also had performances a lot of times, and then and just performing outside of it too. You really have to sell yourself and like in your team that you do because you're putting yourself out there to like, can we get stage time at whatever theaters, and then you're also trying to convince everyone else to go check out your show. But that's why it's not really like a paid thing. It's very few most people like you do it for free, but and even when like when you perform in the theaters, they're usually like volunteering, so it's not the most
Yeah.
lucrative position because it's an arts thing, but you do it because you love it, and then some people can make it big, and there are some too. I was just talking to a friend yesterday. We were watching some bad movies over the internet, and he was talking about a horror comedy coming out called The Blackening, and then he was saying that it's like about an all black cast and they kind of like make fun of this like the black tropes of like the first black person to die and is always black, and then they're like, but if everyone's black, like who dies? So and something that was that had the tagline something similar to that, and I was like, that reminds me of this sketch video that an improv group in Chicago did. They were called 3P. They had a Comedy Central sketches a couple times, and I looked it up. I'm like, yeah, that is them. It's based. So this movie, this feature-length film that's coming out, is based off of the sketch that they did a few years back. I think it was 2018. So
Oh wow.
occasionally things can happen from that, but it's improv wise. Usually improv, you do all the pretend stuff and then it goes to sketch, and then sketch is what can make it on, like Saturday Night Live and stuff. So improv isn't usually the thing that people want to watch outside of like Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
But it is hilarious. I love it. I love performing. I love watching improv.
Yeah. It gets kind of a lot of hate. Like I did stand up, like starting in I was living in Philly, and they have improv
Oh,
and
really?
stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've
And like for some
never actually
reason
been to
the
Philly. I live
oh
on the other
really?
side of Pennsylvania, but I've never gone over to the east side.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I started like before 2016, but it already was like pretty left, and then it just got like intolerable left. But
Stand-up is terrifying enough on its own. Like, I took a class that I didn't know had a performance at the end of it,
oh
and
really?
it's more scary because, like, at least with improv, you get to do stuff with other people and you're making it up as you go. So it's just like that scene sucked, but whatever, I did. But like stand-up, you're preparing the material and it's potentially more personal kind of stuff too, and you're having to like figure out the audience. Yeah, I don't envy the people who do it.
Yeah, but well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, but also I thought improv seemed tough because I guess to me it's easier because I'm in control of everything I talk about, and like improv, you're like in a group, and like I honestly would be like, oh, I don't think this scene's funny. I don't know what to do, and I just like not say anything. Probably, I don't know. I don't.
That happens. I mean, especially when you do like long form stuff, at least the thing is you do a bunch of scenes. So it's like this scene isn't working, people aren't laughing, you move on. So then like someone sweeps the stage and sweep the scene
Oh,
and you start a new one. And it's just kind of like, yeah, that one wasn't great and we're going to start over. Or my favorites were the tag runs. So like you see someone, I don't know, like you have a werewolf who's attacking a person, and then so you have that scene play out, you tag out the one person, and now the werewolf moves to a new setting. It's the same character, but you just move them to a new place. So I'd always go to like, now you're at the grocery store at checkout line, like, and you just get to see like how does a werewolf interact when he's at the grocery store going through a checkout line. And so you can do a tag run of watching that werewolf go throughout his like daily life of things. And I think that's like more fast paced, and I always love that kind. But improv, yeah, they tell you too that like especially when you're starting out, you have maybe like 20% of your scenes are going to be good, 80% are going to be bad, and once you get like professional, 80% of your scenes are going to be good, 20% of them are going to be bad. Like it's still never going to be perfect because you're making it up
yeah,
and you never know what's going to happen.
yeah, and it's like improv. Obviously, it's not. Yeah, but a lot of the comics were like improv sucks. Like, and I never was like that. I mean, there's like a weird like rivalry that isn't talked about or something, but every comic hated improv. I don't know. I don't know why. And improv people like I did not improv, but I was just on shows at their theater like a few times, and like they just seemed like they hated me. They hated comics or something.
I don't get maybe that's a silly thing. I mean, Ryan Stiles on Whose Line, he started off as a stand-up comedian and then he went to do
Oh yeah.
improv. I'm trying to think if there was I mean, there might have been like playful rivalry. I didn't really talk. I mean, I didn't really go to things that were both like stand-up and improv shows. But I did know people who were like, yeah, they also do stand up and they do improv. So it was blended enough. Like I
Yeah.
did stand up because they had it at Second City. They had classes. They didn't do as much performances there. They had a little bit, but not as much. So that's funny. I don't know if that's a general thing.
Yeah, it just seemed like everyone knew everyone. Like it was rare for me to hear someone not slam improv if they were a comic. But yeah, there was some that did both. There was some, and they would be like the better people at improv or sketch for some reason would be, oh, I'll try stand up too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. Like I said, I think stand up is more challenging or at least intimidating because you go up alone and then whereas improv sometimes people do like solo improv, but I usually don't think that's as fun or funny to even watch.
Oh yeah,
And so it's just uh, I think being a stand-up and going up solo, like, it's more vulnerable, especially because 'cause you're talking to the audience, and I
yeah,
never liked that even when I was doing improv stuff, like, we'd have people, like, reach out and ask for questions to the audience and things, and I never liked doing that. I'm like, I want there to be like, I don't mind performing in front of them, but I also don't really want to address that they're there. I'm just focusing on, like, being on stage. I think I'd be okay with it now, but just at the time, though, too, I'm like, "Nope, I just have this wall here." Um, yeah, so I don't know. I don't have any hatred for stand-ups. I think I respect them. I think it's impressive what they can do because especially improv, you practice and stuff too, but again, you're just playing pretend. You're getting on there, and that's
yeah,
why like you're the big thing is that you don't think much about it, and you're just trying to goof around and have fun. And stand-up is generally more prepared.
yeah. I mean, I think it like this one comic was like, oh, improv people are always happy. I can't stand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to be I'm trying to think of the comparisons. I think improv, you have to be more high energy, like, that is
Yeah,
especially when you're running around and stuff, like, you need to do that for that stage presence, but I think stand-up, you don't have to be that, I mean, because you have your shtick or something, and you can be like, "I'm the deadpan sarcastic person, I'm the whatever," like, you don't need to have the same thing, but improv does need
yeah,
to have a more excitable energy to kinda get the audience going, and but I'd also say that pretty much anyone who does comedy and a lot in the arts, but they all are depressed. So it's
yeah.
all a
No,
facade, and, like, there's always, like, some sort of, like, issues that are going on behind them. I don't believe anyone who's just, like, genuinely happy.
yeah. That's what I was. I even noticed that too. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's like an energy thing. It's not because, well, I mean, improv was always like people like just do improv classes like as a thing to do, but stand up's becoming that now. Like, there's more stand up classes now,
Mhm. Yeah.
and at first I was like, I don't know how like I feel about that, but it's not like you can just kind of learn how to do stand up. You can just kind of learn, you know.
Yeah, that's so, like, improv, it's helpful because you have other people you need to have other people to do things with and practice with, in groups, so having classes makes sense. The stand-up ones, it helped the one that I took was nice in that, it did give you an opportunity to perform in front of other people, but then they also kinda taught you I don't even remember what they taught me, but we had to, like, practice, like, writing different ideas down, and you just kind of, like, figure out how to form your stories or whatever it was, like, we tried different types um, like, jokes and storytelling things, so I mean, I thought it was fine, but I think you don't need to have the classes. I think improv is more useful because you need multiple people. Stand up, you can really just practice on your own and then go to open mics and feel it out, and you don't need to pay
Yeah.
for it, but
A lot of people, like, I noticed, and I don't know if it's because they take classes, but when I like, a lot of people just start where they just know how to do stuff. They're like, they at least can write jokes and they know how to, I didn't even know how to like hold the mic right and all that stuff. Like, um, so that probably helps. But I mean, yeah, I grew up
Mhm.
watching sketch stuff and stand up, but I don't know, for some reason a lot of stand ups just had a thing against improv. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think that probably stand-ups probably tend to be a little bit overall the lower energy thing, or they're going to be more angry, might be. I think so. Then
Yeah,
maybe
in the
there's that.
past, I think now, like, it's like not at all like that now. Honestly, I think it's like
And they
the
still
people
hated
that do
improv,
stand up
like with
now.
them.
Yeah, maybe not now. Probably not as
Okay.
much. Well, I mean, I used to think like, oh, improv, that's like more left leaning, but now it's like both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you could find ones that aren't that, but it's just, they're going to be hard and they're not going to be accepted into it. So like that's why, like I said, leaving the improv community in Chicago, it was that they weren't like necessarily forcing people out of like other things, but they were bringing in, they were like, yes, this is what we want more of. We want more of the same thing and the same type of material. And like, so that was what they kind of kept promoting onto their stages and stuff too. So it wasn't necessarily like that they're like shutting down things. They just weren't really bringing them on as much. And, or at least they were bringing in the people who had those leanings and things. And, it just wasn't funny to me anymore. There were a few people who are like, I think were the best performers ever, and I do miss them, like teachers and stuff that I'd watch perform. The one guy was my favorite. And then we used to play hacky sack outside of class too.
So you said that was like 2018 or something?
I did that. When did I move there? 2014, 15? I think 2015. Yeah, but no, I don't remember how. And I moved it back in 2021. So it was about 6 years. Yeah. So I think around 2015 to 2020.
Okay. Yeah, I think I started stand up probably 2014, 15. Yeah, they had yeah, I guess they started to change what they were looking for at the improv shows there, but they also had a it was kind of around like Me Too. They sort of had a scandal there with a guy.
Shocker.
Same thing happened in the stand-up community too, but it wasn't like. Actually, no, there was a couple guys. They weren't like big names or anything, but they were just kind of weird because they both, all those things, like no one really knew the details. It was just like, oh, no, he's like, don't talk about him, don't book him, like, but no one really knew what happened exactly,
Yeah, no, that happened to a couple of people I knew in Chicago too, where it was just the one guy moved to LA though, and I've seen him in commercials and stuff. Several people who are on the Second City stage, you keep seeing him in like commercials or small roles on Netflix and things, so that's fun. Actually, the one girl I knew, she's in the How I Met Your Father show
Oh wow.
on Hulu. But not that she wasn't one who got canceled, but there were a couple people the guys who got Me Too'd, and the one was like married to another girl. They were both like on two of the main stages at Second City, and I just felt bad because I'm like, he's the sweetest guy in the world.
Oh, no.
And then like she stuck by him, and then I think it was just kind of like, no, they're letting this other girl kind of say what she wants to, kind of, because she needed it, and she like kind of needed to get stuff out there, and they never really confirmed whether it was true. It just kind of made it seem like it wasn't, but they were just letting it go because this girl like needed to like get her
truth out or something.
yeah, something like that though. And I was just like, I don't buy it. Like, and I feel bad, like if it's not true, she shouldn't be saying those things, and like, or she's probably misinterpreting stuff. And it was just and he didn't get like fully canceled. I think he still did his thing, but it was just kind of like you end up having sort of like a black mark on your aura of humanness. And then the other guy, I think he I don't really know the details. I could see like, yeah, probably he was sort of a player, but I don't know whether it was like as bad as people like say. So that's another thing that you got to watch out for. They even said too about I think a teacher, but like it was just a general thing where people kind of kept saying that like that white men's time was up, that they were like, I think the teacher was saying that like they're not likely to get hired for anything anymore. They're not going to be as much
Oh
like
wow.
accepted onto into stages and things in the community, just because that's how they're leaning now.
They said that like in private.
I think I remember, if I recall correctly, it was someone I knew had a class, and his teacher had just told, I think it was just telling them generally that like white guys are going to have it rough now. Like they're not going to be as hired for things because they're only doing like the diversity stuff now. So it was just sort of like, yeah,
Okay.
it's not going to be as easy. The teachers weren't telling them like, I'm not going to hire. They were just saying like, hey, this is what's happening now. Like you're not going to,
Yeah.
or like you're unlikely to get hired for things.
Yeah. I mean, I guess back then I wasn't even thinking of that diversity yet. That was like a year later. Well, there was this. I was in Philly still when like Shane Gillis started there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and well, there was this one thing where like some booker like posted this big thing about we need to make like a spreadsheet of like basically a diversity checklist spreadsheet, like, and you should be booking according to this. And he like just posted something like, this is stupid. And like,
Good.
she just, I mean, the thing was there, like, he came there and he was the only person who wasn't like that there. And he did get really successful, like, and booked and stuff. But the whole scene there was not like him. They were like the opposite.
That's because he was funny, and that's the thing that
Yeah.
they keep putting up. They keep accepting the people that they're going to say like, I'm a woman, look at my vagina kind of thing, and just preach about that, and it's not funny. And I think people might laugh for a while, but then it's the same thing over, like everyone is doing the same thing. So when you're someone who kind of stands out among that, and you're really funny, and that's probably going to be like, even if you're not necessarily unwoke, you're just at least willing to be inappropriate because everyone is too offended by everything, and they get scared of saying anything that's going to be wrong, or if they do say something offensive, then they get canceled for it and they bow to the mob and everything. So people who just don't care, they're more likely to make it somewhere, I think, which is good. I'd rather funny people get successful.
Well, I don't agree with that kind of hate speech, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll leave now.
Yeah, but he like also he also like made friends with everyone too, like most people. I mean, there was still people that just like refused to like him, I guess. It was almost like they refused. Like, no, like yeah, and then that was weird. I was like, even back then I was like, okay, but that's not literally, they're not going to go by a checklist. But then now they still are going by, like, they are literally every stand-up local, and maybe even at the clubs, I don't know, but like every single stand-up show is like the exact like ratio. Like it's always like one white guy maybe, but he's like the host usually. And then like one of every demographic, like every single one.
Wow. And then how many of them are funny?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I was just talking about this, like most of them are very interchangeable to me, like, because also they also have the same viewpoint. It's not even like, it would be different if, oh, okay, this guy's, but they also kind of have the same opinions and everything. So like, to me, it's almost like you're like, okay, what demographic do you want to watch do stand up? Okay.
But then, so it was just kind of what, like they put a new, well, this is going to be more literal, like, but a new skin, like on a video game character though, too. So it's just like they're in the same, saying the same thing in the same room, but they're just kind of like, nope, let's swap it out with like a black guy, a brown guy, Asian girl.
I mean, that is what it's like. Like, I mean, I guess I thought like in Philly, oh, maybe this is like more left leaning the same here, but then now I'm in New York, and
You're in New York?
yeah.
Oh, yikes. How's that?
I mean, it's not as bad as like 2020 now, but
Okay, that's good.
um, yeah, I don't know. I guess like 2000. I mean, it was so bad in 2020, but like everywhere got bad, and I think people kind of like, you know, I didn't want to like just move because I thought, oh, it's bad because like everywhere was bad then. So
Wait, when did you move there?
2018 or 19, I think.
Okay,
So
all
like,
right.
I kind of saw how it used to be like more
Yeah.
fun or whatever. But yeah, even here, it's still pretty left. Like, it's a little more like diverse with opinions here, but it's still like, I mean, in Brooklyn, especially, it's very much like Philly was. Like, I think it's more like, it's almost like to me, it's more like a class thing where if somebody went to college, they're like going to have the same viewpoint as everyone else that went to college to me. Like,
Well, that's a lot of what they're teaching in colleges, so
yeah. But even when I do see, I don't know, like black guy comedians, like some will go to like the even before COVID, like they would go to some of the more like I don't know, hipster Brooklyn mics, and they'd still get like the audience would be like kind of uncomfortable with some stuff. Uh, but
So are you doing stand-up now too?
yeah, on and off. Like,
What made you decide to move from Philly to New York?
uh, I guess I thought like I don't know. I guess I kind of wanted to go there anyway, but also for comedy, I was like, well,
Mhm.
it's bigger. I guess Philly felt more small. Like like I was like, oh, it's too small of a community.
That's fair.
It was like two clubs there. But here, like, it's really hard to get noticed. Like, there's so many comics here. Like, it took me like 2 years to even like know people.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you're moving, you're gonna be a small fish in a big pond kind of thing.
Yeah,
And that's what I felt too, like, I do miss the stage that like, live I love performing live because you get the audience reaction, so when you get the live feedback is way better than, like, filming stuff, and then because then you just get to 'cause I have a, film degree too, so, like, I did various, like, filmmaking things a bit, um, but, like, being on stage is way more fun. But I found that at least doing internet things, you can reach those audiences that you might not get in the cities, though, because they're all gonna be more, leaning in one direction. And the internet, you can
yeah,
find other people who are like Ryan Long, who's in New York, he's making it work. He does all those sketches and stuff too, and then he travels around doing stand-up.
yeah,
Like, I think, doing his internet stuff really helped him take off more. So, I think just trying to use internet and technology is probably the best thing to do nowadays.
yeah. Um, yeah, that's what I thought too. And like, cause I was used to only do, I don't know, local open mics and stuff, and I'm like, you're not really hearing it. Like, you're only reaching the people in that room at the
Mhm,
time.
mhm.
uh, Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I keep going on and off now, like cuz like it's just hard to find any kind of audience that might not get uptight here.
Mhm.
Um like I was at a mic recently and it wasn't I just like the host like lit me off stage and it felt like it was like an she cuz she didn't want me talking about something. Uh
What topics do you usually talk about?
I mean, it's like I hardly ever do offensive stuff. I don't know. Like I recently, like I also do. I talked about Epstein before, and well, this time I just kind of was talking about body positivity, And I think she thought I was gonna mock it, and then kind of lit me off right then, like lit me
Oh,
off
and it was a
stage.
she, so yeah,
Yeah,
most likely going to be offended and pre-offended, ready to be offended.
yeah, yeah. And like, it's funny because I just brought like I didn't even get to anything. I just like I was like, so yeah, everybody's talking about body positivity now, and that's when she lit me off. I
She's
was
like,
like,
"Alright, thank you. Time is up."
yeah,
Yes, body positivity, alright.
yeah. But it's also hard when you go to these kind of mics where it's like mostly comics, and they do have the same view of everything.
Mhm.
Or if they don't talk about it. Like, so like I get frustrated with the self-censoring that I think goes on.
Yes, and that's why I think the best bet is to j as much as I hate TikTok, is to just do, like, short video like, you do something where, like, here's a funny joke that you have, and then you build it up that way, and then you build that audience, because I don't know, I think you're gonna have the haters online anyway, but you can reach the people who aren't gonna be offended, and when you're have just that live audience, if you're gonna say even if you don't think that it's gonna be, you know, the taboo kind of topics, you're already like it's iffy when you're potentially calling out anything, like even body
Yeah.
positivity, like those are just conversations, topics that people don't wanna hear. If you're not just, like, preaching the same thing as everyone else, then they're not gonna even let you talk about it. So unless you're just gonna say, like, random like, personal things that have nothing to do with, like, culture, yeah, I think it's gonna be tough. I imagine that it's difficult in New York especially.
Yeah, I guess like it's funny like I don't know. I always like I can't even watch uh I can't even watch stand-ups little TikTok clips of a bit cuz I'm like this cuts out most of your set. I mean, it's not even like it's like, "Oh, here's one 30-second clip." It's funny to me cuz like you could have bombed the rest of the 4.5 minutes. But
Well,
then
that's
the
the plus
audience
side then too, that's a
yeah.
good thing for you as the performer.
Yeah, I mean, but like what you were talking about earlier, like that is really intimidating. Like I used to always worry about audience interacting, like or interrupting you or whatever.
Oh, yeah, those hecklers.
Yeah, I mean, usually that like I don't know if I haven't really seen a ton of heckling, but like I used to think, oh, like real comedians do crowd work and you have to do this and this, but I'm like, you don't really have to do crowd work. I think it's just like if somebody a lot of comics do it, like, I think because 'cause they're like, "Well, my material isn't working, so I'll just try this."
Mm. It
And
also just seems
also
like personality like, that might just be their style is to just kind of
yeah,
get feedback, but not everyone does that. I don't think they should have to.
yeah. Some people, I mean, I think you like, what I do is I kinda wait till all I do is kinda react to something, like, if somebody does say something, all you really have to do is go, like just say one little quip after it. Um, but for some reason, audiences love that, like, any kind of off the cuff thing. They
Mhm.
laugh harder at that than anything
Which
you
is what we
wrote and
call
worked hard on.
improv.
Yeah.
So for the haters of stand-up, know that you're doing improv.
Yeah, that's why I was like, you should I don't know why you would hate improv. I mean, that's what crowd work is, so
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's what's useful if you're gonna be a stand-up who does crowd work, taking improv classes because that way you just know how to respond and doing it kind of in a fun way. Like when I don't watch a ton of stand-up, but when I've seen different things, like when the person just gets like angry, like aggressive to the audience member, like, okay, well that's not as fun. But if you're you kinda have to have, like, the right energy of, like you can make fun of them, but it needs to kinda come from, like, a, "I'm being funny while I do it," and you keep the
yeah.
audience on your side. If you just, like, attack the heckler, even if they're annoying, that can turn the audience against you too, so you have to, like, maneuver well enough, and I think improv can help that way, especially if you're kind of just, like, laughing along with it, but saying something that kind of makes a joke about how you're a dick for interrupting, and then moving on.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is like ego to me. Like some comics are like, "Oh, you guys ain't laughing," like gets angry, and that like doesn't ever work.
Oh yeah, when they call out how like, oh yeah, you guys aren't laughing at my joke.
Yeah.
That just makes it more awkward that you're talking about it now. I'm like, don't.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to address it in maybe like a self-deprecating way, but if it comes across as sort of like picking on the audience for it, then that will be bad. But yeah, that's a tough line to walk there. I
Yeah.
normally like to do self-deprecate, like, especially in improv. I think that was difficult for me at first because they would teach you the classes could be really confusing because they would teach you, like, what not to do, of, like, "Don't say this, don't do that," and there's all these, like, rules of what not to do, and I'm like, "Well," but then you're busy thinking about that, like, it was really limiting, and that was more at Second City. At IO, I really preferred at least the instructors that I had there because it was a lot more open to things, and it wasn't about like what you couldn't do. It was just like, here are the guides of how to like maneuver on stage well, and like and how you deal with having scene partners and listening, rather than telling you like don't do this. But I lost my train of thought of what my point was going to be there, but let me continue on with the thing with my favorite instructor, because they tell you like you can't say no on stage, like, and
Oh
I
yeah.
never, and that was always confusing because it was like, how do you just, like, I get yes but when you can never say no to a thing, though, it's like, do you want a glass of water? And you can't say no to that, but like that
Oh
seemed
yeah.
limiting as far as like having any sort of conversation. But my instructor, he uh the way he explained it was just, you don't say no to the reality of the world. And that, like, if you have an apple and you say no, it's an orange, that's what you're not supposed to do. Like, you want to accept yes and everything that's the world. But if you're asking, like in his example was, if a homeless guy off the street asks if you want to drink from his cup, do you take it? No, you don't drink from his cup. It's a cum cup. You don't take his cum cup. So that's what his example was. And I'm like, and then it just cleared everything up. Like, yes, that is such a good point. Sometimes as a character, you can say no to things, but you're just acknowledging this is a homeless man and his cup is filled with cum.
Yeah, I remember Louis C.K. once. He was like, yeah, one time I was in improv, and just like as a joke, he kept saying no to everything, and like it was killing for some reason.
And it
I
can, I
guess
think
like the
that,
performers would have hated him, but
yeah, well, because it was a bit though, and
yeah,
especially if they know that, like, oh, you're not supposed to do this, and you just like shut it down, like that works temporarily. It's just not a habit that you want to do all the time. Like, so I think for certain scenes, like, yeah, that can be fun, and especially depending on how he did it, like that. If he was just saying no to like anything that they wanted to do, like, yeah, like I think that's something that could work. You just don't want to do it constantly, because then it's just like, well,
yeah.
what, you're just, shutting down the entire playing pretend thing. That's why I
And
don't like
you
rules
said,
though, because you can't never say no. Sorry, what were you
yeah,
saying?
and you said you had the Kevin McDonald guy as a
I
teacher
did,
somewhere.
yes. He did a workshop, and Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall taught it, and that was at IO, and it was fun. We did a sketch. Well, what did we do? I think we were all doing improv, and then we built sketches from the improv scenes in our groups, and we did something about the moon, about like that the moon was. We were suspicious of the moon. I think we were yelling at it, which was kind of reminded me, like, I think there was a Kids in the Hall scene with that, and he brought it up too, though. Like, it was just coincidence. Like, we weren't trying to do it because of Kids in the Hall. It just happened to be like the suggestion or like the scene. But so we had to perform these sketches later on. But I just had the suspicion that he did not like me, and I did make him laugh like in different improv scenes and stuff. So that was really exciting. But it was just like, I don't know, there was some sort of like distance that I felt from him, and maybe I was paranoid. But then at the end, after the performance, we were all backstage. We were like, on either side of the walls as we were like getting ready to go or whatever. And he like walked around to everyone and like shook their hand and said goodbye. I wasn't even at the end or anything. I was like in the middle of the room, and he like just passed by me. That like and I think I was the only one he didn't like say goodbye to, and that was already, I had my suspicions. So when that happened, I was like, I'm pretty sure he hates me.
Hmm.
I'll just call him racist or sexist.
Well, did everybody else like fanboy him and you didn't or something?
I don't think so. I think everyone was fairly chill about it. Maybe
Are they
no one else did. Maybe I was fangirling. I don't think I did either. I think because I don't tend to. I get too nervous about things.
Yeah. Well, are they like? Is that like that's like the top improv place, like Chicago?
Yeah, it's known. I mean, LA has Groundlings, so they're known for that.
Oh,
But I'd say out and New York has UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade. But I would say if you think of a city in improv, I would say Chicago because it has Second City, IO, um, and Annoyance. Although IO shut down, I think it recently opened up again. They got BLM'd, and then so with the COOF and BLM, it shut down, and then I think it got bought out, and I think it reopened within the last year.
do you mean it got like ransacked during that or something?
Oh no, sorry. It got that they were racist and that
Oh,
so that they were even though there were so many, they had an all black group that has gone on Comedy Central and now they're doing the movie and stuff. They had the diversity scholarships where they would give classes for free to diverse people after you apply. So they did those things. They had multiple black
not enough.
auditors and stuff who were like instructors and people, like important people, as part of it, and yet somehow they were racist and they got canceled because of racism. And I remember someone on Twitter I came across, she was like complaining about something or another, and she wasn't someone who was actually involved in it at all. And I said, like, as someone who was there, like, here are the things to defend against. There's like, well, I'm not part of it. Like, I don't really know. Like, well, then why are you talking about this? You don't actually know what you're saying, and you're like attacking them for fake stuff. It's fake news. And so it was just really, I'm like, I got the email. I saw, actually, IO was the first time, an email from them was the first time I learned of what what's it called? The
BIPOC.
BIPOC. Thank you. I was like biopic. That's not the right thing. But BIPOC was. I'd never heard that. I read it and I was like,
Wow.
BIPOC. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
It was in an email.
That I learned all that at the same time when in the summer 2020, because I looked up like Evergreen.
Oh yeah.
Or I came across it, I forget, but and it's funny because when that actually happened, I was like, oh, Brett Weinstein's probably like a right-wing guy. And then I looked at it, I was like horrified. And were they like already left-wing, like they ate their own kind of thing there, you think?
At IO?
Yeah. Is it like inclusive something?
Yeah, I mean, they had the BIPOC stuff, so I would say that they are already like politics and stuff. I think everything was left leaning. So while maybe not like the biggest wokeness, I think it was getting there. And with the BIPOC stuff, I would imagine. So yeah, I think they kind of, they probably catered to them, and then they still, like, that still wasn't enough, and then they're still racist even though they're trying to help out and do all these things. And but Sharna is a white woman, even though she's a
That's
woman,
first
she's
mistake.
white, I guess. So and so she was
She should have decided not to be that.
Yeah, I know. And she could have transitioned to a different race because that's allowed too, right?
Yeah, there was some cafe in Philly that they were super, super progressive, I guess, and like they closed because they were all infighting about like they were accusing the owners of holding all the pay, like, and they weren't getting paid enough, like the just cafe employees. And they were like, okay, fine, we'll give you all the money, and then they went bankrupt, I think. So
yeah, duh. I mean,
yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, just generally with jobs. Like I don't know whether like I've mostly seen it on TV, like where you're in, like you have your job and like, well, you need to request a raise. You need to go in and do that. And for me, I've always felt like, what? as the employee, I don't feel like it's my responsibility to request to make more money, and even if like, if that's the norm and stuff, like, maybe I just don't really think of it. It's like, if this is what they think that the job is worth, then okay, and if I don't think it's enough, then I would say, "I'm gonna look for another job that
Yeah.
pays more," and then if I tell them that and they're like, Well, we'll pay you more, we wanna keep you, so we'll pay you more." Or, like, have some sort of communication there saying, like, "Hey," not in a way like, "You should give it to me." I guess that could be a conversation where you're like, "Hey, I'm not making enough money, I'm gonna look for work where I can," and if they offer, like, but I think it's weird to feel obligated, that they should feel obligated to pay me more money for it, 'cause, like, I get that raises happen, but I just also I don't know, I don't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, they now people talk like if you don't get a raise, it's like it's what's that called? Like it's definitely a bias. It's like sexism or something. Like you should expect raises. Like people, and then like yet everyone's being laid off now because of the inflation stuff.
Mhm.
But like,
Like, they I at least get that the raises would happen for, like, inflation for purposes where they're like, "Okay, the
yeah,
cost of living is going up," so they would adjust accordingly, and it wouldn't be that much, and, like, that part I get, but then, like, to expect, like, I'm gonna get several dollars an hour raise for this, like, doing like, why that if it's not just about cost of living, I don't see the I don't see necessarily why you, like, deserve to have that. I think that's great if the employer does think that and, like, and they can afford it and stuff, like, okay, I think that's bonus.
yeah,
Otherwise, like, this is the job that you got, and again, I get that other like, generally, jobs do end up, like, paying more over time, like, recently, I was looking at teacher salaries and stuff, but I don't know, I've just never been I also have never been at a job long enough, like, I kind of jump around because I get bored, or literally move places, so to me, it's just always been like, yeah, if this isn't working for me for whatever reason, money or just I dislike it or something, I'm gonna go find a different job, and
yeah,
I don't expect the employer I especially don't want to force them to do something. That's why a lot of times I'm not a fan of unions. I think they can be useful for certain things, but a lot of times I think it's just, um, excess.
yeah. Well, I was in the like stand-up union, so
What was that like? Is that
no,
kinda
I'm
like
just
being
kidding.
in
There's
the
no,
well, is there a I thought it was like an actors union, like what, SAG-AFTRA or something?
no. I mean, no. Actually, there was well, I did like that did remind me of like UCB. I remember like Kurt Metzger called them out because they didn't used to pay comics or something, or they paid them super low. I forget.
Yeah, to perform yeah, like I said,
Yeah,
a lot of the performers, it depended on what you did, like, Second City, like, the main stage theaters, they got paid, or, like, the 3 theaters there. IO, maybe some of those shows got paid, I think a lot of them were volunteer performances, I'd say most of them were volunteer performances, I don't think they really got paid, you just did it 'cause he loved it, and then the cost was paying for, like, the expenses like, running the building and everything,
yeah,
for ticket sales. So, it was just kind of like, yeah, it's hard, like, people I think you have to understand too that things are worth what people are willing to pay for them, and a lot of times, art stuff just isn't necessarily gonna be that, and then so if you're not getting it through, like, grants or taxes or whatever, though, like, it can be tougher, like, you kinda have to it's not going to be necessarily the most lucrative thing unless you're in, like, a Hollywood type of thing and you make it big.
I mean, yeah, I do think people are kind of being told to expect a raise now.
Mhm.
Like, there's this show on like Apple, like something for all mankind or something. It's about like space, like astronauts. It's like a fake history thing. It's like if we kept going to the moon, but it's really feminist show.
Mm.
And this like lady that works for NASA, I guess, like like she had just all of a sudden was like, I want a raise, and then like kept like demanding a raise, and then she got one. But I think in real life, like, it just kind of, the message was like basically that it was sexist. There's no other reason to not get a raise.
Yeah, I think everything that happens to you as a woman is because of sexism. Everything that happens
Yeah.
to you as a minority is because of racism. So, doesn't matter what it is. That's just always the reason.
Yeah, and I used to think like at a stand-up show, well, that's never going to happen in a stand-up show because audiences laugh inadvertently. And I think now I'm kind of like, I think people are self-censoring their own laughs now a little bit in a comedy show. Like they're sitting in the audience and like I've
Yeah.
seen people like laughing quietly, like they're afraid or something.
Have you noticed if it's to jokes that might be considered
Yeah.
taboo? Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I'd say and it also is just that, like, no if no one else is laughing, and then you're also afraid to kind of let that out too, and, so it's, like, multiple, effects going on there that kinda keep you from laughing. Yeah, but, like, audiences also don't like to be yelled at or, like, preached to as much. I remember working at Second City, one of the shows that they did, they were generally funny people. Like, I knew like, the director, he was black, and he was an instructor, and I thought he was funny on, like, the teacher jams that they did, and then there were 3 black cast members and 3 white cast members, but the show itself was incredibly preachy and pretty much
Uh,
kept calling the audience racist, and that was the show that I saw the most walkouts from the
oh
audience,
wow.
that they would leave so much, and then instead of having any sort of, like, self-reflection on it, everyone was just kind of like, "Those people were racist." So, like, that's why they didn't like it, is because 'cause they're racist. Like, no, I've talked to them. They were just saying, because I was, like, trying to catch them before they left and not paid their bills, and so I was like,
Oh.
"Sorry," like, I get it, like, I agree, because like, there was a couple who were military members, and they're like, "We fight for this country, like, we don't care about these things, like, we don't wanna be called racist." I'm like, "I get it, just need you to pay your bill," like, to sign here, and I'm like, "I understand you can ask for your money back, I agree with you, like, I totally
Yeah.
understand, but, I don't wanna be screwed over here." But yeah, it was just like it wasn't because they were racist, they came here to laugh at a show, and then when you kind of get preached to constantly throughout it, it's just not fun. Which, by the way, speaking of stand-up and improv, the thing that I hated the most, was when people would come into the Second City shows and expect stand-up, and they didn't
Oh.
understand what it was that they purchased. The tickets that they purchased to was that it was a sketch show with improv at the end. Like, how do you not know this? Um,
Well, were those crowds like um a lot of white people and they,
yeah, majority white, I'd say.
but like, do you think I don't know what Chicago's like. Do you think it's mostly left leaning people?
Yes, I mean, it's probably suburbs and stuff. There are gonna be conservatives around, but
Yeah.
well, I don't, because like there's the working people, but it's a city, so I'd say generally it's going to be a blue city. Um, but there are also going to, I'm sure there are conservatives around too who they just get drowned out by the rest, and definitely in the improv community though, like it's very very left.
Yeah. Yeah, Philly too. Like a lot of people still think Philly's so blue collar and like tough, and I'm like,
Mm,
it really
no,
got gentrified. Like I actually, it like I think it's more woke than New York.
really.
Yeah, and like actually more.
Ugh, I wanna cut them out of PA so much. I feel like
Yeah,
we're a purple state and keep going blue mostly because of Philly,
yeah,
and I hate it.
yeah. That is crazy. Like, cause PA is so big, and like there's so many areas in PA. Like I went to college there and lived in lived there for a while. Like, and there's so many little towns where you're like, is this PA or like I don't know, Kentucky? You know?
That's what PA is just a bunch
Yeah,
of little town like, it's mostly spread out. It's so many small, like, counties and things, and, population isn't dense anyway. Like, you have, like, a bunch of different counties that the population adds up to, like, in Erie or in Pittsburgh and stuff, like not even that, but you take off like the majority of PA. But so you have Erie, Pittsburgh, and Philly, and I'd say Philly and Pittsburgh. Philly's the worst one. Pittsburgh's probably next, and then Erie, because like, and it probably just goes by size, as far as like what's going to be the bluest, and then everywhere else, then it's like mostly. Oh yeah, I forget about them. I'm sure they're blue too, but they don't matter to me as much. But yeah, somewhere there, those four. But everywhere else, like out when you're just outside of the cities and stuff, like I don't know how big Scranton is, but like pretty much everything else is red,
pretty small,
with like sprinkling blue. Because even around here, like I do definitely know people who are like Democrats, even if they're not like socialist ones, they're at least like the classic Democrat. So they're people who aren't as crazy to me, at least. But it's that's why I hate things on a state level too, though, because like you get drowned out, and that's why I hate democracy. You get drowned out by all these like the bigger voices there who aren't as intelligent.
Yeah, I mean, my friend lives around Harrisburg, and yeah, I guess like Harrisburg's kind of like almost a dangerous city, and then he lives in this small.
Dangerous? I don't believe that there are like safe cities, really.
Yeah,
Like maybe Anchorage, Alaska. I don't know why I think that. Just when I went there, it was really pretty.
Oh, I don't know. There was so many Alaska TV shows that I was like, Alaska's probably so mad because like now people know about Alaska.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I should move
I don't
there.
want people to come here. I would want to live there in the summer. Yeah, it was beautiful. I don't think I can handle winter time or anything. Pennsylvania is already bad enough in winter too. Fortunately, this winter was actually mild, but we still got into like, I don't know, probably like negatives, something like -10 at one point. So plus wind chill.
Yeah. Well, you're not near like Mount Pocono area or anything?
No, we get sort of the Erie Lake effect sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But not much because we're more south of it. But it just, I don't know. But we are up like on a hill, and so even like when I go down to the valley into town, like the weather will be different. Like we have way more snow up there than there's like nothing down here, and it's very windy up here a lot of times.
Well, yeah, like speaking of Shane Gillis, he's from like Harrisburg, and like that's area. Like, I mean, my friend lives in Dillsburg. Everything's a burg there, I guess, and yeah, it's like a really small town, and you know, kids like because he teaches high school, kids go to school and they like ride a tractor to school.
Awesome. Big farm town then.
Yeah, but then there is some suburb kids that are like, I don't know,
I'm looking at
non-binary.
Dillsburg. It's around the same. So its population is 2,643. And then technically the town I'm closest to is around 2,000 some too. And then the one that I work in is 5. The one I grew up in too is the 5,000.
Yeah, so you still have friends in Chicago. And are those the ones, like you said, you still have some woke friends or something?
I have many woke friends still. So we don't really talk politics too much. But even when we did, like, I remember trying. The thing is, I think if we could really have like a deep conversation and ask, like, you know, and get to the part of, do you believe in like, you know, like the non-aggression principle, or like the initiating the use of force against someone. I think if they really sat down to think about it, most of them, I would say that like, no, like they would agree with it. They just can't really connect the dots into saying like, well, the beliefs that you have here with wanting more government involvement and doing all these things is using the force for that, and here like in your like the authoritarianism. And I just don't think that they can get to, because even in the times like if they I think they usually shut down the conversations too, because I remember like stuff about the coof, and I don't know where you're posting these on, so I'm afraid to give you misinformation by saying too much, so I keep saying coof. But like he just it was like in 2020, and I kept trying to explain how like we don't know things yet though, like, and I
Yeah.
think we're jumping to, and he was, well, we do know, we do have all these things, like, and like 2% of people are gonna die, 2%, like, so he was just really kind of spouting off like the numbers. I'm like, but we don't know, and we're not really seeing that yet, and like if you enrich, so it wasn't even me saying that it's not going to happen. It was more like, well, this is uncertain. And then same thing with the jabs, where it's just our other friend too, like who apparently he said in text though that you guys know that like I've always been really into vaccines since high school. Like, really? Never once came up in conversation any of the time that we've known you. And but it's one of those things where I'm like, and I don't remember how much I might have talked to him about it, but it was just kind of like that they didn't understand how long term works, where it's like, well, you can't figure out how the long term side effects happen until the long term happens, and like, and you just, and I couldn't understand that. But I think for him too, like he's talked about kind of having like libertarian ideas sometimes, but I don't know. I think he's
Yeah.
more like left leaning, because it might be like drugs, legalized drugs and that kind of thing though too, but not fully understand, like keep following that through line on like individualism and non-authoritarianism. So I just think that, and then the first friend too about the coup, like he's, I guess, kind of declared himself like a communist before, but I just think a lot of people say those things without deeply understanding their values. And I think most of my friends who did, like, if they took the time to really consider it, I think they could get there. They're just going to think of stuff on the shallow level though, and just do what they think is right. And they just think that, like, that friend even posted once on Facebook too, saying something about how, like, it sucks when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning. I would hate to wake up on the wrong side of history. And it was like something about within the last couple of years, like, oh, gag. So it's just like so pretentious, man. But he's actually really funny though. He did improv too, and he's offensive. Like he will
Really?
say like a lot of like offensive, like kind of racist things, and it's not like he'll make like terrible jokes, and I think he's hilarious. But he will still talk about all these other things too, and like trying to, and I would imagine his brain is probably, it's difficult for him to kind of, live in the world and try to figure out like, well, I'm supposed to be virtue signaling and believing in these things, but I'm also kind of this like hilarious asshole, and that's hard to like balance that out.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing comedy in Philly, like I would be like, "Oh, this guy's funny," and then I would see people on social media and be like, "What the fuck?" And like now, I just don't even want to follow people, or just not. I just don't go on social media because I'm like, I will not like people. Like I just won't like, because a lot of it is just like knee-jerk emotions, I guess. And I guess like if you really do, like, yeah, if you think you're on the right side of the history, like, I don't know, it's just that's a scary mentality that they made people think. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. People also don't understand how long term works. So how do
Yeah,
they know what history is? But uh, again, it's just one of those things that I think that they only see stuff on like the short term, and then they think that this is going to be great in history, but you're only looking at what's happening right now with, I don't know, let's say like tearing down statues or something, because that's what's
yeah,
right, that we need to get rid of that. But then, so I just don't think people are good at actually looking at long-term effects of anything, or understanding what it means to do what they're doing, like defunding the police. Like, okay, like in theory, like ideally that could sound really great, that you're trying to help out. I think having the right motivations can be good, because that's how I can, like, agree with stuff with friends. Like I get where, like, even with the socialism, like I understand where you're coming from and wanting to help people out and wanting everyone to be happy and safe and everything. But when you when you force it and force other people to make that happen, though, that's where we're differing, and that's where
Yeah.
you get wrong. And just because you have like the right motivations for it in certain regards, like doesn't mean like that's the ends justify the means thing, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I guess I was almost gonna say like, how old is he? But because I mean, yeah, when you're in college, like when I feel like when you're in your early 20s or something, you're like, oh, I just read Karl Marx, so like now I'm a communist. Like that's your identity now. Like any book you read is your new identity.
Um, at the time, I mean, he's now gonna be 30. Yeah. So then this was at least a few years ago too. So, like mid to late 20s, but then definitely went to college and just have it's that city attitude. It's the college
Yeah,
city attitude of people who, because and I knew so many of them where they felt better than their small town peers
yeah,
that they left, and because like they're the hicks and stuff too. And I think I kind of felt that way to an extent. Like I was never, a left-leaning or socialist or anything like that. But I think there was a part where I was like, well, I want to get out of the small town. Like you kind of have that interest in like I want to be bigger than this town. And I think that's okay. But I don't know. I just feel like I didn't feel as pretentious about it as I've seen some people be though too, that they're like
yeah,
those people are wrong to want to live in that small town and to be conservative and to have all those things, and so they just like really look down on it. And I, especially moving back and kind of seeing like the community and like all the stuff that they put into like events and things, like it gives me a lot more admiration and respect for it. But I don't know. I think maybe that just also comes with age, that like when I just maturity, I'll say maybe rather than age, because I also hate when people say like, well, they're young, they don't get it. Like I hate that,
yeah,
because I'm like, I wasn't that way when I was that age. Like, don't give them that excuse. But like I think some people mature earlier than others as well.
yeah. I mean, I now I don't think it's an age thing. Like somebody can be 70 and be just as radical.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I do think with age can come wisdom. And so that's what I mean by it, that like, you have more life experience, so you might just kind of understand the world a little bit more. And but I also so I think that can help, but I also don't think that not having that prevents you from being able to make good decisions and stuff when you're
Yeah,
younger. I just think that like, well, sometimes that can help you grow as a person.
yeah, but like even back then when like I don't know, like yeah, back then I was like, yeah, it's cool learning all these ideas at college or whatever, but I always looked at them like that is the problem, like you're saying, like now it's like they're imposing all their views on everyone. Where like before it was like, oh, cool, you're reading about communism, that's cool. Like no one's like saying no, somebody has to have the same views as everyone
Mhm.
else, but like now they're like, no, you have to have our views. And now it's going into law, and it's like, I mean, that's the problem. Everybody still does this. They're like, "Oh, what do you care that we changed every Disney person's race for no reason?" Or it's like because you're just trying to stick it to people, like, and you're putting it in law. You're putting your views into,
Yeah, the that's why, like, I think people have the right to believe in whatever they want. So, if you're racist, if you're misogynist, if you're, a socialist, like, I think you have the right to believe in those things. I don't think you have the right to force your beliefs on anyone else. Even if
yeah,
your beliefs say that you can do that, I don't think that you can, because I believe in individual rights. And I think if you infringe on them, then you're wrong.
yeah. I mean, that's why, like, I think the White House secretary said something like, "Why are you trying to ban drag shows? Like, what kind of?" I'm like, "Because you're forcing kids to go to drag shows. It doesn't make sense to do that. It just doesn't." You know, it's like if
Yeah.
you want to send your kids there, go ahead, but not like that's why they had the whole separation of religion and stuff. Uh they used to probably force religion and everything. And they probably even back then weren't like, you better talk religion with your kid or he will kill himself.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, that is still a thing around here. Like, I'll have old people talk about how, like, they used to teach, like, the Bible and stuff at school, and so they're upset by the lack of that now, but I'm kind of like, well, in a public school, I'm actually I think it's fine. Like, I remember in 8th grade history, we learned about Christianity, what else? Islam and Judaism, and like Hinduism. So like we did kind of learn about various religions, but it wasn't really specifically. We did say like we're reading the Bible verses here, and I don't think it's that bad. I've been confused because as a reporter, I'm covering city council in different council meetings, and I keep not understanding how it works. Like they usually do a moment of silence unless they have someone there to any sort of like minister or priest thing. Maybe technically it doesn't even have to be a Christian, but it's like if they have one, they can do a prayer. And I'm so confused by this because I was like, how come we do prayers at like a government meeting? And this seems like weird, and I don't, but like everyone does it. And is it just in the small town? Is that a thing that the government does? Like, so I've been confused about how the separation of church and state works with that though, because if they have someone to do a prayer, they do that. Otherwise, it's just a moment of silence. And I've seen it happen a couple of times, and I'm like, why? But I think people have the right to believe in what they want. Like I'm not religious, and I'm a very far libertarian, I guess is the simplest way to phrase it. But I classify myself as a voluntary minarchist.
Is that are you a radical libertarian then?
I guess if radical means like far, because they do
a
like
lot of these
quadrants,
terms,
far left, far right. I guess it'd be far up or down, whichever side you're doing.
Yeah, I like don't even try to think of an identity politically anymore because I used to worry just when I started my podcast, like, oh, people are gonna think I'm right wing because I criticize woke whatever. And now I'm like, they don't even mean anything. People say you're a fascist if you just disagree. So,
well, that's what I think. Words do matter, and I think from Carter and Unsafe Space trying to understand. Like I at least, since we use words to communicate, I at least like to be able to get on whatever conversation I'm having. Like, let's get on the same page. Like, how do you define the words that you're using? That way, I can just understand. Because we might be using, and that sometimes that happens. We're like, oh, you're meaning this, I'm meaning this, and that happens with libertarianism. When I try to tell Alex and Juliet, I'm like, nah, I just consider you guys libertarians though, because like Juliet's conservative, Alex says she's centrist, but I'm like, but you both want smaller government. You both like are anti-authoritarianism, and you might have some stuff, but like you're on the libertarian side of things, and that's how I am very. I think libertarian is like such a wide umbrella that I'm like, if you are against big government and like the smaller you want it, the more libertarian you are. Like I don't care where else you're standing on things, but like if you're just kind of like leave me alone sort of personality, like yeah, that's libertarian. And so I kind of want to take that word back a bit too, because a lot of people are like, well, they're crazy because they're doing all these. I'm like, yeah, some of them are. There's a bunch of people like everyone has their own opinions on things, but generally I'm trying to like the little L libertarian is just like it encompasses a lot of different ideas. If it's just smaller government, you're a libertarian.
well, how did you come up with being libertarian? Did you do quizzes? Or did you
I don't know how long. I mean, I grew up, I guess it was kind of leaning in conservative stuff because I didn't really understand the other dimensions that there could be. I don't remember when I learned the word libertarian, but my dad has always been more on libertarian conservative side. So I grew up like I was never woke, never went through that and had a change of heart or anything.
I was raised woke, so
oh yeah, raised through the god of wokeness. But and then I think as I've gotten older, it's just gotten more individualist, and it was especially through Unsafe Space because for a long time I never understood where libertarians sat on the spectrum when I saw left and right, because people would say, like, I would think,
so you're saying you're on the spectrum then.
I'm on the spectrum, yeah, for sure. because I was like, well, I agree with things on the left, like a lot of social ideas, like I do agree with, and then
Yeah.
but then I'd say like socially liberal, fiscally conservative was kind of always how I saw things, and then so then I was like, okay, like, but then they would say that the farther right you are, the smaller government you want. But then it was also like fascism and stuff. Like, I don't understand how the spectrum works. Like, where does that sit? So then I'm like, okay, so libertarian might be more closer to the center, but like, I don't believe in like, but it's still like government here. So I was like trying to put it in between. And eventually once I learned like, oh, they're just different, like you got to cross now. And I'm like, that helped me to understand. And then through Unsafe Space, I learned more about it. What the more important thing, because I was like, what is the difference in 2020? I couldn't understand the difference between liberals and conservatives. They were like blending in a lot, and a lot of them wanted authoritarian things. And so it was just kind of like I don't understand, like, how do you define what each one is? Because I see like overlap. And then I
Yeah.
learned about like libertarian versus authoritarian, and that's the spectrum to care about. And then the liberals and conservatives all want an amount of authoritarianism. It just depends. Like oh, I want abortions, I want freedom, whatever other things. So like it just depends on what side you are of what you want from the government. And then the less you want from the government, the more libertarian you are, and the spectrum of individualism to collectivism. So those things that really help, because I was going through like an identity crisis for a few weeks because I just didn't understand, like, where do I sit on things, like why, like how do I kind of convey what I believe, and I couldn't place it. And so Safe Space really helped me to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This is where I am. And then I happened to come across the term minarchy at one point just by reading some sort of like various governments that people don't really know about list of things. And I saw minarchy and I was like, oh, that's what I believe in. And I never knew there was a term for it.
Yeah, I guess I well, one time I took an online thing about, I guess, libertarianism, and it was like the only part that I was like not on board with, I guess, it was like, oh, would you care if people can buy like child sex dolls if they're a pedo? Do you care about that or something?
Wait, I'm confused by the question.
Like, I think it was saying like, oh, you're a libertarian if you don't care at all, if like you literally don't care about what anyone does, like even if a guy buys.
What was it? An adult would be buying a sex doll that was a child's shape.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't understand if it was a child purchasing a sex doll. Okay, that clears it up. And I think sometimes, well, I hate the political tests and stuff too, because they're always like biased in some sort of like never really fully understanding, or they're worded so specifically where I'm like, well, like neither or something, or I've always been bad. I think I failed an employment test thing that from like Walmart or Giant Eagle, or the questions were like, would you do blah blah blah, and I think at one point they said that I wasn't fit to work there because of, and I don't know what it was, and I think I probably, because I answered questions differently, but I was like, it depends on the situation, like it's so situational, and I didn't know if it just made it seem like I was gonna respond too much to authority or not enough to authority, or I just like, because I knew the questions were similar, and I was like, no, I'm gonna go with this one instead here. And so I don't know if that was the reason, but I feel like it was like, she's too inconsistent. She can't be trusted. But I think most things are situational, and I think I think, and this is what Alex and I were talking about the other night too on a stream, in that we can care personally about what someone does without thinking, hey, we should force them to do or not do something. And like, maybe I don't think like drugs we'll use. I think people should be allowed to purchase and consume whatever drugs they want as long as they're not hurting others. Do I think it's a healthy move that they probably should be doing? Most likely not. It really depends, but it also depends on the situation. As someone in like excruciating pain, and the only thing that really alleviates it is heroin, but they are still able to like kind of function normally without it, and they're not concerned, like, okay, like it's really dependent on the individual and their situation.
Yeah, that's true. Well, like now everybody does like they'll be like, "Oh, so you want people to overdose on heroin?" Like everyone goes to the extreme
Yeah,
now.
they don't have any sort of
Yeah.
balance in there. And I'm also, I'll say that drugs are the biggest thing that I've changed my mind about, because
Are
I
the
grew
best.
up with and I don't do it. I've never done anything. I think I've smoked one puff of a cigar before, and I drink sometime. And there have been times when I've gotten like very, very drunk, but and I also rarely drink. And I've never done anything else. But I also think that I believe in people's right to do so. But when I was younger, even in college, I hated marijuana. I just thought like that was bad, and I still hate it because of the smell. It just smells like skunk. No matter what anyone tells me, that they're like, it's just the
Yeah.
bad kind. You need to get the good. I've never ever smelled it. Apparently, everyone has terrible weed. But because I grew up, or like with alcoholism in family and stuff too, so that was always like a deterrent. So I was always just kind of like anti-drugs because of it. And then I got more libertarian on it too, where it's like, well, it's not my decision to try and force people to do stuff or another. But again, it's kind of like, yeah, are you a drunkard and that affects your family and whatever ways? Like, okay, you shouldn't do that, but you're also not necessarily like, doing anything harming people. It's not illegal to do it. But can you still be a dick? Yeah, like you might be a sucky person, but you also don't deserve jail. Is kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what they do try to get libertarians for. They probably just do that's their whole strategy, is to go, so you want someone to beat their wife and be an alcoholic. You're for, just like when Elon Musk took Twitter, people were terrified that, oh, he's going to allow anything.
Yeah, they're still scared of that too. Like, oh my god, Twitter's so, because again, I have those lefty friends, the authoritarian, and I'm using lefty. I try to not
Libtards.
always use that, because again, I see like left and right. The spectrum is so like people use it so differently. So I generally prefer using authoritarian, because that's just more specific to me. But
That's actually that's a good idea. That would be, they'd get mad at that probably.
yeah, but it's true. But for simplification, sometimes, especially like around here, because there are people who are like are concerned about Democrats and Republicans. I'm like, I'm so far beyond that. Like, I don't care on either side. Like, if this is where you are, like, you are not uh, current with the culture right now. If that's how you believe in things. So that's why, like, there's this one kid who's a Democrat, and although I probably disagree with the union thing, he's running for city council, and I think he's 19, but I think I agree with a lot of what he wants. He's not trying to raise taxes. He's just trying to help the community out and grow the economy and things. Like, it seems more like he's pro police and stuff too, though. So, and when I asked him before if he was how he felt about drugs, he wants to legalize marijuana, but doesn't like harder drugs though too. So it's kind of funny where I'm like, he's not this extremist. He kind of has like a sort of classic Democrat thing. So that's where I'm like, I could support him. I think I would never vote for a Democrat in like any bigger things, but I think on more local stuff, I would potentially consider it, just because of, I think they're like, I would disagree with conservatives, the Republicans, on certain issues too. But I also don't vote really. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, like a lot of people, I mean, my family and me and my friend talk about how bad it is now, and he's like, if somebody still is going to vote now, I guess he's overvoting, because he's like talking about the East Palestine thing. He's like, if people are seriously going to vote again for, and I'm like, no, people forgot about that already. I mean,
yeah, they're really good at sweeping that under the rug. But anything, I'm not a very emotional person for a lot. Like, when I react to a lot of things that happen, it's kind of like, wow, that sucks. That's terrible. The thing that gets me is animal stuff, though. So like, it could be like pretty much anything else that I'm kind of like, okay, like it's like a distant sadness or something. But for animals, and especially ones that, like, I have chickens, I have this, and like, and that worries me too. And I'm like, what if that happened here? Like, is that still gonna like come? Because Ohio is the Ohio border, So like, could that still affect us? So that's a thing that I'm like, no, I remember that. I'm upset by this.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's pretty crazy the control they have over the media, because they literally, like, I think in the past, if I would be like, if something like that happens, no one's gonna forget that. That's gonna be all over the news. And now I'm like, no, they can just ignore it now. I
Yeah.
mean, and like people like Joy Behar are like, oh, they voted for this because it's a Trump county or something. And it's like, did the animals vote for?
Voted
Even if you
for
think that
what?
way,
Train
he
spill?
would. Yeah, she said, oh, it's a Trump county, and he somehow was responsible years ago for. Yeah, it doesn't make
What?
sense.
She's an idiot, so.
It doesn't matter though. I always keep saying that now. Like, somebody could literally say like the worst thing you can think about a Trump voter, and it doesn't matter. Like,
It doesn't matter what you think about them, or it doesn't.
well, like nothing happens. Like
Oh,
Biden could say like, I don't know, Trump voters like should be put in camps like soon. People would be, no, he meant that wasn't what he meant. I guess they would just do that.
yeah,
Oh, he
yeah.
didn't
They're
mean
really good
that.
at. They're really good at about having to translate for Biden,
Yeah.
where whatever he said, like, well, he actually meant this thing. I think it was hilarious too when people who voted for him, they were upset. You know, a lot of people had Biden regret, and which that was just hilarious on its own. But it was and also very annoying though, because it's just like, seriously, that like you couldn't
Yeah.
understand this beforehand. So that was upsetting and hilarious. But they ones who were like, what was it about the pipeline too, where he like, you know, they like ended a bunch of potential job opportunities and stuff, and then someone was like, I didn't think he was actually going to do it, and it was like, well, he said he would. Like, yeah, but I thought he was a politician and he wouldn't
Yeah.
actually go through with what he said, you know, because politicians lie about stuff. Like, well, you don't vote based on someone because you think they're going to lie about the platform that they're doing, especially about something that you would hate. When it's something
Yeah.
that you would absolutely hate and you think he's not going to do this thing, but he says he won't do it, but they lie, or he says that he will do it, but they lie, so you think that he's not going to do it. Why would you risk that? Why would you risk if he's saying to do something and you would hate it, and if he actually
Yeah.
follows through with it, then that would be terrible? And I was just like, how are you that idiotic? I don't know how many. Wait, where does this air? I was gonna say the R word, and I didn't know if that was going to be acceptable.
I mean, I used to say whatever. I mean, now I guess I try to do that stupid. Recently, I've been trying to copy other YouTube people, but I do have it on Rumble too. So I mean,
Okay, yeah, that's why when I do Rumble only now, I do not censor anything. I'm just
yeah,
saying every thought that crosses
just
my
don't
mind.
like have bikini pics or anything.
Yeah, apparently. Well, that's not going to be an issue. I was not planning on that anyway, so you don't own one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like getting mad that a politician does follow through.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just, again, I don't understand how people want democracy. And I was talking to, it was when Chicago Fawcett was on, because he was being pro democracy on the one occasional levity stream too, and I like him. But that's why I was just saying, like, hey, I'm just gonna say I don't like democracy. And then when you're having other people, especially stupid people, vote in things that will affect your life. Like, why would I want dumb people to make decisions about my life? Like, I don't want their input. So if we're going to vote, there should be limitations. I want I want wiser people to be voting, because it's not an IQ thing necessarily. Like, there are intelligent, woke people. I think of it in like Dungeons and Dragons terms of like intelligence versus wisdom. So you can have like a
Yeah.
high intelligence score, but your wisdom is low, so they're still like voting wrong. And I think that like even with like kind of more conservative places, they might have lower intelligence scores sometimes, but I think their wisdom can be higher, because when they understand individualism more, when they think, I don't want the government telling me what to do, to me that's a higher wisdom score.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if someone has an higher IQ if they're woke, because they're so ideological. Like, look at Sam Harris. I mean, I like used to respect him a lot, like especially over the lockdown, like, and like recently I'm like, what? Like, okay, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how smart someone is if they become that one-sided.
Which one is he again? I know the name, but I always mix up people's
Uh,
existences.
he like, I guess he's famous for just being an atheist. I don't know how that would make someone
Okay.
famous, but
Oh.
well, he does meditation stuff, and um, he did get flack from left-wing people because he was I don't know if he still is, but he was anti-woke, and he,
Okay, but so it looks like a philosopher, neuroscientist, author,
yeah,
podcast host, and then rationality, religion, ethics, free will, neuroscience. Okay,
rationality is gone now, but
so what has he been saying that's been, I don't follow him clearly. So what has he said now that's been bad?
just like he hates Trump, and he used to hate Trump too, but
Yeah, people with TDS. Doesn't Ben
yeah.
Shapiro, didn't he? I think he's gotten a little over that, but didn't he have TDS as well?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know.
I think he was a never Trumper. I think Shapiro
Oh,
was a never Trumper. And I think he kind of changed his mind over time.
yeah, I don't know. I actually didn't hear that, but
Again, I don't really follow people closely. It's just stuff that I remember being told this at one point or hearing things, but
yeah, I mean, he used to. Well, there's certain people I'm like, all right, you don't like Trump, and that's how he used to be. Like, now he's like, I mean, I guess, because he went on a podcast and he said like Hunter Biden, like he was like, I agree with them covering up the Hunter Biden story, and
this
he
is Sam
said,
Harris.
yeah,
Oh,
and he he was like, Trump University is like, wait, the Hunter Biden could have like dead kids in his basement and it wouldn't matter to me, like, because like, it's like a firefly to the sun compared to Trump University. And I don't know much about Trump University. It just sounds like it's a stupid little school, private.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. But like, I also keep thinking, you said you did audio recording.
Yeah.
And I know I almost went to some like audio recording schools. Like, I did get a bachelor's technically in that. But there's a lot of schools that's like, become an audio recording person. And like, so that sounded like Trump
That's the degree they're
University.
giving out. It's just Bachelor of Science and audio
Yeah.
recording person.
Well, these schools are just recording, but I did have it was also in the music program. So
Yeah, that's at my school. They didn't have an actual, like, it was filmmaking, and they kept talking about doing an audio, like a specifically like audio major. And so my friends and I, who were super into sound design, we wanted to transfer into that, but I don't know if they ever ended up doing it, but they definitely didn't do it while we were in school. But all of my electives and everything too was into audio engineer, sound design stuff. So then when I did the audio engineer things in Chicago, coincidentally, Second City was doing voiceover classes in that same studio. And I had no idea when I applied for it either. So I was really excited because I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Like, I love the voice acting, just on the voice actor side, but then learning how to do it on the technical side and be the engineer for it, that was really cool too, to be able to do that.
yeah,
And do other VO recordings for like commercials and stuff.
yeah. There was a few people with film degrees that started doing stand up, and I was like, what is the overlap there? It still doesn't make sense to me.
Oh,
But
I couldn't answer, at least from mine, was that I already knew, like, at least performance wise, like I loved theater and I, did a lot of that growing up, but I was like, I already know how to act and all those basics from like high school and things. I don't need a full degree in it, but if I'm going to go do TV things, I'd rather have like the knowledge and stuff on the technical end, because like performing is less likely, but you can get in from a technical side.
that's true.
And so just having, which I also don't think you need the degree, especially now anymore. You can learn everything on the internet. But at the time too, when I felt like I'm supposed to go to college, like, well, I like TV, I already know how to do the acting side, and let me learn more about the technical side of things.
Yeah, that's why I went to college for that too. Like, and I think, certain college, like I do think that's kind of I don't know, like it's almost immoral to me now looking back. Like I'm glad I didn't only go to recording school, like because I would only have a skill that's like kind of, I mean,
Oh, it's too
especially even
narrow.
even back then it was becoming obsolete, like because you could start to record by yourself on a laptop.
I think
Um,
most degrees are unnecessary unless you need
yeah,
it to, like, be a doctor or something like that. Like, I do not recommend people to especially take out loans to go to college
yeah,
and for things that you can learn on your own. Um, and, yeah, so it's like most things, but if you're gonna be, like, in the medical field and stuff and you need it I guess technically a lot of teachers now too for, like, secondary education, they require, like, a master's degree, which
hmm,
is, ridiculous, but yeah, so I guess if but then also, don't do public school. I'm an advocate for, like, homeschool and, like, private or co-op stuff, so
yeah. Yeah, there was like I guess because of the craziness in the past few years, I used to think homeschooling like was like making your kid R-worded.
Mhm.
And
I used to think, yeah, that but or or just generally, I had, like, misconceptions of
yeah,
homeschool.
um yeah, by the way, like the avoiding certain words is kind of funny to me, like because they're so they're almost worse sounding to me. Like Patton Oswalt used to
Yes.
have a bit about that. Like some of the euphemisms are worse than
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, I think I've mentioned this before in streams too, like, I think it was Louis CK who had, like, the N word, and he talked
oh
about that,
yeah,
but, like, you just when you say that, you make everyone think of the word, like, when you say the thing, it's still the concept of what you're not supposed to say, and so it's just so silly that, like, now you have the new and eventually the N word's going to be bad because they just keep changing it
yeah.
too, like, well, now that's offensive, so now you're gonna have to say the word that begins with a letter after M will be the new thing.
Yeah, and there's also words that are close to that. Like I had a old
It's like the South
stand-up
Park
bit.
episode.
Yeah. But I had an old stand-up bit about white rappers and I didn't say wigger, but 'cause I was like, is that offensive?
I don't know. And what's the oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name, um, this comedian hang on, let me look at this up, but he's the one where the music is about the 2 Gs, the I, the N, the E, and R, and then so then he goes through it without saying it out, and then eventually it's about being a ginger. So then
Oh.
so, so that was good, but I can't remember what the song was, or who the person was now. I can picture him, I just can't remember his name. Wait, is it Tim Minchin? I think it's Tim Minchin.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, Australian comedian, of course he's Australian.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Ginger Prejudice, so I think it's a yeah, it's a song. Um,
Yeah,
so
like
that's a great one.
um I mean, I usually just say like you're my ginger. I mean, you could try that with your
What up, my
boyfriend or
ginger?
whatever.
Yeah, he was just talking today too how I don't remember how we got on the topic, but he worked with, where was he from? If not like Jamaica, but somewhere like in the islands too. So he was in Chicago and he was a black guy, but he would say, like, "What up, my N word" to the ginger on like on the train, and he would just be looking over and there'd be like black women who were like looking at him like, "What did he just call you?" Like, I didn't say it. I was just called one.
Wow. Yeah, so that's what you call your boyfriend or for
Call him
anyone
the N
listening.
word. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite, well, yeah, Louis' bit I really like, and I also like George Carlin had an old bit about it, and he was like, "Yeah, George, Richard Pryor, he can say it because he is an N word."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like even when I was like kind of new in stand up, like one or two white comics would say it in a bit. And I think that's when that was done. Remember, alternative comedy used to be like offensive, like Sarah Silverman.
Yeah.
edgy, and then now it's like the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, well, she was getting canceled and stuff too.
Yeah.
So maybe she had to kind of stop. Oh, she's, there are things that she says that might be kind of like unwoke or a little woke. Like I never know. It's again, I think of the people who are offensive. I think they're still in there, but then I think sometimes they kind of feel pressured into like falling in line. But not everyone does. Like some people just don't care and they'll say whatever. And but I think. And I've said this on my streams too multiple times about it's don't put people on a pedestal on things though, because even when you have oh gosh, Dave Chappelle, where he like he's pretty unwoke with a lot of things, but he might say like he might be I think he might have had some leanings, I don't know necessarily BLM, but just like certain things that kind of hinted a little bit more in the other direction. And just for everyone is going to have various opinions. Like no one is going to agree with you 100%, and when you idolize them, they're eventually going to let you down, and it's risky. So don't think that everyone's a hero. Like Elon Musk, I don't trust him completely. I think it's a good move. Like I'm glad he took over Twitter because there's a potential for things to be better and less censoring. Is he going to be understand like in-depth values and stuff of individualism? No, I don't think so. I think he probably has a better grasp than like very woke people. So it's just kind of like a scale of, of who it might be better, but I don't trust anyone completely to like have all the right quote unquote values of things. So it's just kind of like, I agree that this person said these things here, like those were good. Now this person's saying this other thing. Not like, that's disappointing, but I'm not gonna like overreact to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sarah Silverman, like I wish she would just be like I guess Bill Maher is now. Like I wish she would just go against woke, but she's still trying to be. She's not as bad as Amy Schumer, but like she did say when Louis got canceled, she was like, I still like Louis, like, and I wanted to see him do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Like,
know. I don't know much about Amy Schumer, but just because of generally isn't her thing always talking about her vagina and stuff though. Like I don't know if I ever would really think that she's that funny anyway. Not that I think not that I'm against bringing that up though too. That's why, like I said, it's hard for like as libertarian as well though. Like some things might kind of sound like sort of feminism or something's not like I don't care. Like I think anything can be funny coming from the comedian thing. You could talk about anything, but it's just kind of when you have a shtick. And then especially coming from like a feminist sort of perspective constantly though, then that gets old.
She also started out being like a Sarah Silverman, like I'm edgy and offensive. And then she said, I'm sorry, I was doing a right-wing character.
About being edgy and offensive?
She said she used to do literally a right-wing character on stage. So, but that was how she was trying to get out of being canceled at the time.
Oh, that she didn't actually believe in those things.
Yeah, and she kind of still does the same. Like, I guess maybe now it's more just about her vagina and that's it now. But before
I
it
actually
was
never
like,
really listened to anything. That's all
yeah,
I
me
know is
either.
that she's talked about vaginas. So I don't know if she talked about other
And
things
she's
before
the
that.
first. Well, the thing is, she is the first female comedian. So
Is that right? Huh?
yeah, she's the first, and she is a woman.
Wow. Okay. Female and a woman.
Yeah, I mean, people always kind of go to extremes though. Like people like Amy Schumer do make people go, "Oh, see, no woman is funny," and I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. Like, but it's hard to argue against when you have Amy Schumer type. She inspired a lot of bad comedians.
Yeah, and that's the thing when I get like with Chicago stuff too, they're gonna put people on who aren't good because it's just like here's the same old shtick that they're gonna all do, and so then everyone who like actually wants to hear something funny, like, well, this isn't funny, and this is what we've got though. These are the people that we've had for women comedians, whereas other ones who may have been funny have left and or just got pushed out or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I don't know, like, yeah, that's why I keep getting. I keep going back and forth with like I'm done with stand up, like, but I do think I was saying before, like, on another episode, like, I kind of don't see it the same anymore. Like, I don't think stand-up is like the like raw truth thing anymore. Like, you know how people always were like, no, you tell it like it is with stand-up. I mean, that's just not.
That's the idea for improv too. I mean, they have
Oh
like
yeah.
books called Truth and Comedy, and that's how they like that the funny comes from kind of having some
Oh,
sort of truth in there, which I also think is like it might take it too far. Because like sometimes I'm just gonna be a teapot and I'm gonna do stuff. I'm like, there's not really truth, but you play it truthfully. It's like, what would a teapot do? Like, instead of like, so I get
yeah.
that from that respect, but like this, I think sometimes people took it too much. Where like you're only able to play like who you are. Like, no, we're still playing pretend. You're just trying to be honestly how a sentient teapot might be reacting.
Yeah, I guess now people would say, no, it's about my truth. Like,
Yeah.
and it'll be just like, okay, we're doing a sketch about when I was raped. And it's like, okay, I don't know if people need to see a lot of like that started to happen with stand up where like people sometimes would go on stage and they'd tell something like, because I was assaulted once, like, and so, and
Yeah,
they
then
try
it
to
just
make it
make
funny
it
and
uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there are ways to do it. I think any topic can be up, be funny and be up for grabs on, like I don't think anything should be off limits.
yeah,
But you have to do it in a way that's not going to be uncomfortable.
yeah. I mean, well, people did start to literally say like, no, this subject, look, like rape is never funny, but I always think of the Carlin, George Carlin was like, rape can be funny. Picture Porky Pig raping Elmer Fudd or something.
Yeah, no, again, I don't think any things should be off limits. I think it can be tougher. There are certain topics that are
Yeah,
going to be more challenging to make funny, but I don't think that you shouldn't never you shouldn't never. Yeah, that's right. You shouldn't never talk comedy. I think I want that double negative there.
yeah. Well, I remember like once I talked to some girl once, and she was like, Louis came up or something because I saw him in New York just walking around once. I was like, oh, I
Mm.
saw him. She was like, what? You saw him? And I was,
And when you looked at him, that was rape. He raped you
yeah,
at that
yeah.
moment.
Well, I thought it was funny because like I looked at him and he looked like startled. Like I was like, does he think I'm like a blogger or like,
Someone recognized. Oh no.
yeah. And
Um,
she was like, I think he should just never do stand up, I guess. Like he should do something else. And I just was like, just couldn't get past that. I was like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, his whole thing, I only vaguely remember it, but I was really bothered. I had my white male friend who's authoritarian in Chicago when we were I think it was over a Discord call though too, because I think it was we were all in Chicago, but I think we were having to do movie nights virtually because of the coup. But I think we were having a discussion about Louis C.K. and I think he kept saying rape, and I was like, he didn't touch those women, and like regardless, and I think I would say that like, that is wrong to also like that lessens the impact of what rape actually is when you're defining someone who's not even
Yeah.
being physically assaulted as rape, and like that's not okay for I don't think for someone who like for those people who may have been raped out there, but you can argue about was it was it cool or uncool for maybe the girls to feel obligated to stay and watch him jerk off, because I think that's what it was that like they like he might have helped them out though, but they had to watch him jerk off. And like, well, but you also have the option. He wasn't forcing them to stay. They still had the free will to be like, this isn't worth it to me. This is not how I want to break into the comedy industry, is doing this.
Yeah.
Like, this is uncomfortable. That might make it more difficult, but people do that. I think, was it Octavia Spencer or something? I think she talked about a similar thing where like she wasn't going to play by like the actual misogyny that she may have experienced there, but she was like, I'm still like, oh, she might get blacklisted, and I could be totally wrong. It might not be her at all. I just think there was some sort of actress who was like potentially going to be blacklisted for it, but she was unwilling
because of
to.
Weinstein thing.
I don't know if it was Weinstein or it might have just been anything, but it was just that like she she wasn't willing to do the things that, like, you know, sexually or whatever, like promiscuously, that were kind of like required to do it, but she wasn't going to do it that way. She was still going to try, and then she still got successful. So it might be more challenging, and the world sucks. It's not fair, and maybe and the people shouldn't be doing that, but they. So I think it's one thing to argue with, like, hey, people should be less, jerks about things. They should be, more respectful from one human to another. But I also don't think you should call things rape when they aren't that.
Yeah. Like there was, I mean, that was pretty crazy. Like, cause there was one, like somebody might've said he blocked the door when he was doing it. But I'm like, everyone's assuming that definitely happened. Like he definitely blocked the door. Like no one was there. It's weird how everybody started to go, this is what, like assume right away how it happened was how whoever said, like whatever they say is exactly how it happened until Joe Biden's thing. And then now no one thinks
And now
that,
it's just like nothing anyone says is
Yeah.
how it means, because Biden never says anything. Yeah.
Well, he's old fashioned. That's all. Like he's old fashioned. Like men used to just.
But that
stick their
didn't
hand
work
up there.
for Trump either, though, where he's not
Yeah.
old fashioned. He's evil, and like everything he said, like it's too crude, and he should know better. But then Biden, he's from another time,
Yeah.
another era. Also, I should leave soon because I've got to go
Oh yeah.
do some dinner things. Just FYI.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say. So your channel's called the DimSide on.
Yeah, on Rumble it's the DimSide, and then on YouTube it's the DimSide 45, because they wouldn't give me the DimSide because someone else had it for some.
Oh.
Because when I have had my channel since I think December of 2006. I think is when I made it. But when I first made it, it was The Sorceress Princess. So you can find it at youtube.com/The Sorceress Princess. But or else it's the DimSide 45. Which that other person who has it doesn't even use it. It's so.
Yeah, I have YouTube, like the name is a guy in his room, but it's not. It's Mosquito Man or something. Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
can't change the name.
Yeah. Oh, they won't let you change it either? Like they
not
let
the
me.
channel name or something.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. I think, yeah. No, I think you had to reach like certain levels, so I don't think I was able to change it. But that's why I could still keep the Sorcerer's Princess or the string of numbers and letters. But you can do the @ like if you have that @ username thing, you can use that now. So you could be youtube.com/
okay.
@ a guy in his room or whatever you have for that. So that might make it easier. But yeah, I'm the DimSide on everything else, on every other social media platform, even Backyard Chickens. I have it, and yet YouTube will not let me take that account, even though the other one doesn't use it.
Well, I guess you'll have to sue or something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just gave up on YouTube. Is the biggest thing. So whatever.
Yeah, and you guys used to be on, I guess, Unsafe Spaces channel. That's where I found.
So you did come
one
through
of your
there.
shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure exactly because you said that you knew them, but I didn't know. I couldn't remember how you had come through it. But yeah, we were on there, and then they were moving more to written content anyway, though. So then I just moved stuff to my channel.
Okay, and you're on Subscribestar?
I am, yeah, which is the DimSide on there too.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody go there and get merch that you.
Oh, I should do merch. No, it's just donations and stuff. But I'm on Twitter, Gab, Discord. I also have the Element one too for when we get banned on Discord. Maybe I'll do a Gilded. But yeah, so it's the DimSide and everything on there. I should do merch because one time Alex talked about, I think, the light vagina, something from Lord of the Rings. What's the new show? The Ring of Power. Rings of Power.
The Vagina of Power. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's something where it was like the light, like when the one girl the elves went into that light, and I think she called it the light vagina because it just kind of had that opening in the center. And then was it something when we had another character? I need to remember what those were. Vaginor, I think we had a character name. But yeah, we should make those into shirts.
Yeah, I don't know if people say pussy on YouTube, but
I know Alex and I did. Like YouTube didn't censor us. We said a lot of things that we probably shouldn't have. Like the R word was okay. I'm pretty sure I said pussy a lot.
oh yeah. Well, people say like unalived instead of like suicided or something,
Oh, okay. I didn't
which
know
is
that.
just a creepy. And my friend's a teacher, and like they, instead of saying that, they say, "Oh, this kid completed." You know, isn't that like so awful sounding?
Yeah, completed.
It's like
Wait,
an
as in
Orwellian, like, "Oh, that sounds good. What do you mean he completed?"
completed what? I'm still confused. They were teachers and or
If a student offs himself,
oh,
yeah,
we're still talking about unalived
yeah,
and he completed. Oh, that is uncomfortable.
yeah,
Completed completed
yeah.
life, is that what?
I guess,
But
yeah.
just
The
early
highest,
on.
the highest achievement on
Yeah.
Xbox.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm gonna use that from now on. From all the suicides that I have to
Yeah.
address and stuff.
Yeah, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, anytime. This was fun. I'm down to talk more about comedy or whatever else
Oh
too,
yeah.
though. I have to make dinner now.
Oh yeah. So your abusive husband is gonna.
I'm doing it was my idea. I wanted to do pancakes and then we have lemons. So now I want to try lemon pancakes, which I wasn't sure if it
Oh.
was a thing, but it is a thing. We're gonna make it a thing.
Yeah. Well, cricket pancakes are coming soon too, probably.
Oh yeah. Oh, interesting. But yeah, anytime that you want to chat again, this was fun.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Check our channel out and your column in the newspaper, or whatever you do too.
I am a newspaper reporter. You can check it out. It is online.
Oh.
You can see it's not just a column. I'm the sole reporter in the town.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were like not wanting to dox.
Oh, I've
the
already shown it on
newspaper.
my streams before,
Oh,
and
okay.
so it doesn't super matter. I've kind of doxed myself, but also like it doesn't matter if people try to come here. Like the only thing is, I guess potentially, if my job gets mad, I don't know how authoritarian they might be or not. But I'm also the only reporter that they have, and I already came in with
Oh.
like knowing the community too, though, so they kind of need me. So that's bonus. And if anyone tries to come to the house, I've got geese who attack like everyone but me, including the ginger, and we also have a lot of GUNs. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which I have one right here. I've got my revolver right now. So.
Wow. And a lot of instruments too.
I do, yeah. I can never know how to show it. I can't, but the banjo is behind me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've got other ones. I've got the melodica. I've got the mandolin sitting over there, but I have the melodica.
Oh wow.
What else? Oh,
You're not in any bands or anything?
I wish. None of my friends ever played musical instruments. They only sang, so I was the only one. This is a theremin.
Oh. Look, I would just assume it's a radio or something.
I could never get it to work right. I don't know. Oh, I think I have a penny whistle. Yeah, got a penny whistle here.
That's a good sound effect if you're streaming.
So I got lots of stuff. I've got the guitar, Epsilon.
Oh yeah, that's big.
He didn't mean it, Epsilon. My keyboard's name is Lil Fermata.
Oh.
If you don't know music,
my
Fermata is a musical. You haven't? That's weird.
No.
Weird that you haven't named all of your musical instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe another time I ask about music stuff. I think I forgot to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm totally down to discuss. We could do music and talk more culture stuff too. I don't know. I know more comedy and culture than I do like music and culture stuff though, but we could talk music.
Oh yeah.
But I also have D&D in an hour, so that's why I have to do dinner and D&D. Okay. It moved up a half hour than I had initially planned.
All right, yeah, I'll let you get on to the new nerd stuff.
I do have a lot of this wasn't nerdy enough for me, clearly. If we want to do other nerd things, I've got a Rubik's Cube here, so
Oh,
and then a bunch of D&D. I've got a bunch of dice for D&D and a rainbow.
it's weird that it's like you're pulling things out of thin air almost because I can't see.
I know, and I have like everything here. I would show the gun, but I don't know if that might
Oh, yeah.
upset. Like YouTube never gets mad from it in the past, but just to be safe, unless you want to see it. Otherwise, I'll show you a unicorn horn die.
Just as deadly.
Yeah. But yeah, this is fun. Thanks for having me on. Like I said,
Yeah.
another time too. I'm happy to chat.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening. So you're in New York, yeah, Eastern time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good evening then.